Now, if we're able to think back and conjure up ancient history, we may recall the night of May 28th of this past year, 2020, when rioters were demolishing the city of Minneapolis in response to the death of George Floyd. In the middle of that night of chaos, rioters forced their way into the Minneapolis 3rd Precinct. Police officers then abandoned the building, driving hastily away in vehicles or retreating on foot in full riot gear as the mob hurled rocks and fireworks at them. Reportedly, city council members had been begging the police chief and the mayor to surrender the building to the rioters for fear that defending it would only further enrage them. We don't want to make them angry by defending the police station, so the building was surrendered, and eventually it was ransacked and torched. Now, this one incident, one of many similar incidents in Minneapolis and other major cities across the country over the summer, single-handedly puts to rest any claim that police used more violent tactics against BLM rioters than they did against the rioters at Capitol Hill this week. It is very hard to make such a case when police quite literally handed their precinct over to the rioters and sat back and watched them burn it to the ground. Let's imagine something. What if cops had decided to stand and fight, defending their building from the rampaging mob? And what if they had used lethal force to do so? And what if, in the ensuing melee, an unarmed black woman had been shot at near point-blank range in the neck and killed as she tried to climb through a broken window into the police station? What if that had happened? Can there be any doubt about the public and political reaction to such an event? Is there any chance that the BLM and Antifa set and the media and the Democrat Party would ignore the woman's death or outright defend the officer on the basis that the black woman didn't belong there, shouldn't have been climbing in the window, and so deserved to be killed? Is such a reaction conceivable? I think we all know it's not. This hypothetical woman, let's pretend her name was, say, Ashli Babbitt. She would be memorialized with building-sized murals, and more rioting would be conducted on her behalf. And athletes like LeBron James would put her name on his jersey and exhort us to say her name. The outrage over her death would be nuclear in proportion, and her name would be famous in death. A martyr for the cause, another canonized saint for social justice. That is how it would have gone with the hypothetical Ashli Babbitt, and we all know it. What about the real Ashli Babbitt, though? The real Ashli Babbitt, a white Trump supporter, was killed in real life while participating in the swarm on the Capitol building on Wednesday. According to reports, she was unarmed, didn't have a weapon. Video of the incident shows that she was attempting to climb through a broken window when an officer shoots her in the neck and kills her. This is inside the Capitol building. Now, we've heard quite a lot about the killing of unarmed civilians and the harsh treatment of rioters, and here we have an example of both. She was unarmed, she was killed, and I would say shooting someone, that's pretty harsh treatment. But this Ashli Babbitt has not gotten the sort of treatment and attention that our hypothetical Ashli Babbitt would have received, nor has she gotten the treatment or attention that non-hypothetical, violent armed felons, not unarmed, but armed felons like Jacob Blake have received after getting shot by police. In this case, Ashli Babbitt has been mostly ignored by the media and the left. Most of the scant attention her death has attracted has been in the form of what the left would normally call victim blaming. Perusing Google this morning, I could not find a single headline, a single one in any major publication that identified her as an unarmed woman in the headline, which is strange because usually unarmed is the first thing they tell us in these kinds of situations. The next thing they tell us is the race of the person, usually. Most of the headlines that I've seen about this shooting are like this one from NBC News. It says, "Woman killed in Capitol was Trump supporter who embraced conspiracy theories." Now, the article goes on into great detail, telling us about all the sins the dead woman committed on social media. For example, quoting from the article, it says, using the handle Common Ash Sense, Babbitt's Twitter account was almost singularly focused on radical conservative topics and conspiracy theories. Among other fringe beliefs, she tweeted about Pizzagate, a viral disinformation campaign that falsely alleged a child abuse ring was being operated by Democrats from a Washington pizza restaurant. Babbitt was a loyal Fox News watcher, according to thousands of tweets to Fox News hosts, but she also engaged on social media with the conspiracy news internet news site InfoWars. In 2020, Babbitt began to tweet with QAnon accounts and use QAnon hashtags. QAnon conspiracy theorists subscribe to a false belief that high-profile Democrats and Hollywood celebrities are ritually sacrificing children, and that Trump is fighting to stop it. QAnon followers have allegedly committed real-world violent crimes, including murder, and the FBI labeled it a potential domestic terror threat in 2019, unquote. So those, now, again, normally somebody's killed by police, we're told that details about their life are irrelevant. The fact that George Floyd forced his way into a woman's house and put a gun to her stomach, that's not relevant. We can't talk about that. But the fact that Ashli Babbitt tweeted some kooky conspiracy theories, that's relevant. Many more details are provided about Babbitt's tweeting habits. As for information on the shooting itself, almost nothing is provided at all. In fact, I could find only one mention of the fact that she was unarmed in any mainstream publication. Forget about just the headline. Okay, it's not in any headline, but is it even in the article? I found one article, one. The Washington Post, in the last sentence of the third paragraph of its article on the shooting, quotes two law enforcement officials who confirm that she was unarmed. Now, could the shooting still be justified? Babbitt was where she should not have been, doing something that she should not have been doing. That's clear. But if that alone justifies deadly force, then police would have license to kill many people at many of the riots that have broken out around the country. It's hard to see how the officer who pulled the trigger could have reasonably viewed Babbitt as a lethal threat to himself or anyone else. She's a small, unarmed woman climbing through a window. Could they not have pushed her back? Could they not have taken her to the ground and cuffed her? Video shows, and this is really important, there was a whole line of armed, heavily armed law enforcement officers coming up the steps directly behind her. I mean, they were a few feet from her when she was killed. Could none of them have simply grabbed her and pulled her away? Or are the reports wrong? Did Ashli Babbitt actually have a weapon? Or did the officer think she had one? I doubt it based on the video footage, but I don't know because the media isn't bothering to ask. Did he fire because she was wearing a backpack and he thought there might be explosives in it? Again, that seems dubious since lots of people were wearing backpacks and they didn't kill anybody else. And lots of people at other riots wear bags, and that's never a justification to shoot any of them. Again, it's hard to know because the media isn't bothering to look for answers. Nobody is demanding accountability. Do we even know the name of the officer who pulled the trigger? Has he been put on administrative leave while the investigation is underway, as is usually par for the course in these situations? There appears to be little interest in these questions. The people who have, again, spent years panicking over police shootings, especially police shootings of unarmed people, are happy to simply let this one slide. Just let it go. We won't even ask about it. This is not what would happen if Ashli Babbitt had a different political affiliation and a different skin color. And that is not a double standard that we should simply accept and say, well, it's just the way it goes. The media only cares and reports if, you're on the left, and especially if you're not white. I don't think we should just accept that. One thing is clear. The left has poured into the streets to protest and riot over police shootings that were easily more justified than this. Starting with Michael Brown, who was killed while in the process of assaulting a police officer and trying to take his gun. There's no rational argument that would make Brown's killing wrong, but Babbitt's killing right. The double standard and the apparent incoherence here is only confusing until you realize that the movement against police brutality actually has nothing at all to do with police brutality and never did. The deaths of men like Brown were simply excuses. They provided cover, a forum. They were a Trojan horse. Tragedy is used to justify anarchy and to enact the left's radical cultural agenda. If the concern was really over brutality, then these people would at least be asking questions about Ashli Babbitt's killing. They would at least be demanding some answers. They would at least care. But they don't, because they're frauds and always have been. Listen, hit that subscribe button right now. Do it right now. I thank you for your compliance. It is somewhat appreciated.